The Bold and the Beautiful recap. February 17th, 2026. Eric's double life unravels as Ridge and Brooke make a shocking visit. Tuesday's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful delivered a slow-burn emotional reckoning that felt both inevitable and deeply unsettling. What began as quiet concern over Eric Forrester's sudden distance escalated into a full-blown revelation. One that exposed not only Eric's secret professional life, but also the emotional wounds still festering between father and son. By the end of the hour, the truth was out in the open, and the consequences promised to ripple through every corner of the Forrester, Logan, and Spencer families. At its core, this episode wasn't just about fashion or business rivalries. It was about pride, legacy, resentment, and the devastating toll those forces can take on a man who no longer knows where he belongs. Ridge senses something is wrong. The episode opened at Forrester Creations with Ridge Forrester immersed in his designs. On the surface, it looked like a familiar scene. Ridge hard at work, channeling his creative energy into sketches. But Brooke Logan immediately noticed the tension etched across his face. Ridge wasn't just focused, he was troubled. Brooke attempted to lighten the mood by bringing up the latest online feature from Bill Spencer's fashion magazine. Katie Logan had given an interview praising the brilliance of a mystery designer tied to her new venture. The article was clearly meant to generate buzz, but Ridge was unimpressed. He scoffed at the hype, doubting that the unnamed designer could live up to the glowing praise. Yet the article wasn't what truly unsettled him. Ridge's thoughts kept circling back to his father. Eric Forrester was supposed to be enjoying retirement, golfing, traveling, relaxing after decades of building a fashion empire. Instead, Eric had gone radio silent. He wasn't playing tennis. He wasn't traveling. He wasn't even returning Ridge's calls. Brooke gently suggested that Eric's stress might be normal, but Ridge wasn't convinced. He mentioned that Eric's doctor had weighed in on his condition, though he noticeably avoided sharing specifics. That omission spoke volumes. Ridge was worried, truly worried, that something deeper was going on. When Eric failed to respond to Ridge's third attempt to reach him, concern turned into alarm. The lack of communication had crossed into strange territory. Ridge and Brooke decided they could no longer wait. If Eric wouldn't come to them, they would go to him. Eric's hidden struggle at home. Meanwhile, across town, Eric was anything but retired. At home, he sat surrounded by sketches, fabrics, and unfinished designs, visibly overwhelmed by the pressure he had placed on himself. This wasn't a leisurely passion project. It was a full-scale professional commitment, and it was slowly crushing him. Donna Logan joined Eric in the living room, hoping to pull him away from his work. She suggested a relaxing day by the pool, a reminder that he didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Eric barely heard her. His mind was locked on deadlines, expectations, and the collection he was designing for Katie's company. Donna could see the toll it was taking. Eric wasn't just stressed, he was physically unwell. His breathing was labored. His focus was fractured. Donna urged him to be honest with Katie and admit that he couldn't continue. This job was costing him far more than it was worth. Eric finally confessed what had been gnawing at him. He wanted to be back at Forrester Creations, working alongside his family. Retirement hadn't been his choice, not really. It had been forced on him. That admission cracked something open. Eric explained that Ridge had pushed him out of the company he founded. While Ridge later attempted to make amends and offer him a role, Eric's pride wouldn't allow him to accept. Instead, he walked away, and that decision set him on the path they were now on. This new venture wasn't about money or ambition. It was about relevance. Eric needed to prove to Ridge, to the industry, and to himself that he still mattered. Donna's fear becomes reality. Donna begged Eric to see a doctor. She pleaded with him to walk away from the line before it destroyed his health. As she spoke, her worst fears began to manifest in real time. Eric struggled to breathe, his chest tightening as panic and physical distress collided. Donna's composure shattered. She screamed that Eric was not fine, refusing to accept his attempts to brush it off. She made it clear she would not lose him to pride or unfinished business. Eric tried to calm her, insisting that everything was under control, but his words rang hollow. He admitted that he never imagined his life would reach this point, separated from his company, estranged from his son, and seeking validation outside the family he built. His anger toward Ridge had never dissipated. It had festered, fueling his decision to align himself with Katie's company and, by extension, Bill Spencer. That anger and the need to prove himself was now threatening his life. Ridge and Brooke walk in on the truth. Just as the weight of Eric's choices pressed down hardest, there was a knock at the door. Ridge and Brooke had arrived. The moment Ridge stepped inside, his eyes were drawn to the sketches, fabrics, and design tools scattered throughout the room. The truth hit him instantly. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't casual creativity. Eric was working, seriously working. Ridge demanded to know what was going on. Brooke, meanwhile, pieced it together with quiet clarity. Her earlier run-in with Eric at Katie's on January 16th suddenly made sense. The secrecy, the tension, the mystery designer, it all pointed to one undeniable conclusion. Eric had been living a double life. The shock wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Eric hadn't just taken on a new job. He had done so in secret, fully aware of how Ridge would react. Bill and Katie faced the fallout. Elsewhere, Bill Spencer voiced his own doubts. He admitted that he wasn't entirely confident Eric would deliver on his commitments to Katie. Eric's earlier outburst over the quality of silk had raised red flags. To Bill, it signaled bigger problems ahead. Still, Bill's solution wasn't compassion, it was pressure. He wanted to push Eric harder, completely unaware that Eric was already unraveling under the strain. Katie, on the other hand, was deeply concerned about Eric's health. She knew the truth would eventually come out, and when it did, Brooke and Ridge would not take it lightly. Katie urged that they move quickly on the line, hoping to ease the tension before the fallout arrived. Bill made it clear that his top priority was Katie, not Eric, not Ridge, and certainly not the Forrester family drama. Eric, in Bill's eyes, wasn't someone to be coddled. He had pitched himself as the lead designer, and now he needed to follow through. Katie struggled with that perspective. She didn't want to let Eric down, especially knowing how much this project meant to him emotionally. Bill dismissed her concern, reminding her that business didn't operate on feelings.
He even floated the possibility that Eric might fail to deliver altogether, perhaps regretting his decision to go up against Ridge in the first place. Katie pushed back, insisting that Eric wouldn't abandon them. But Bill remained skeptical. He warned that if this situation exploded, it would ignite one of the show's most volatile feuds yet: Eric versus Ridge, father versus son, legacy versus pride. A family war on the brink. By the episode's end, the stakes were crystal clear. Eric's secret was out. His health was compromised. His relationships were hanging by a thread. And the business deal meant to restore his sense of purpose was now threatening to destroy what little peace remained. This wasn't just another professional rivalry. It was a collision of unresolved grief, wounded egos, and decades of complicated love. The Forrester family feud, already one of the most explosive in soap history, stood on the verge of becoming something far more personal and far more dangerous. As Eric's double life unravels, the question is no longer whether the truth will come out, but how much damage it will leave behind when it does.